Greetings, my friends. Father Leo here again with my reflection or homily for the fifth Sunday of Lent. And it is going to be a commentary on the statement that came out from the Vatican last week. And certainly they informed the Pope they were going to do it. Secondly, another writing up says he approved. So I'm a little bit confused here about his role to play in this document that came out and has splashed all over the media during the past week. And it had to do with the Pope approving a document that says that when it came to same-sex marriage, the church will not bless same-sex marriages. And it went on to say the church can't bless sin. So there's it is in a nutshell. Now it's a document, and I have not been able to get my hands on the document, but that's the kernel of the document anyway, about unwilling refusal to bless same-sex marriages. Now, I think it's true to say that there's a long history of religions not knowing what to do with homosexuality, gay and lesbian and trans and queers, as they call themselves. Good names, nothing. But the point is, even in some countries in the world, if you're discovered to be a gay or lesbian, you're automatically a criminal and you can be arrested and jailed. Now, you have to ask yourself, like, what is it that's going on in the minds of people that there's so much fear in the face of homosexuality? I can understand it a little bit with men because they're always afraid, you got to be macho, strong, real man. And if you're gay, then there's that stereotyping. You're not a real man. And the macho guys, so there is a fear, I think, behind a lot of it, because the Vatican is filled with a whole bunch of old men, the Pope himself, and so it could be a projection. Now, we no longer kill homosexuals, but there are parts of the world in which they do. There really are. And so we have to be aware of that it's not just the Christians who have trouble with homosexuality, that many other religions do as well. But today's reading, in the second reading, it uses the word that God loves all. God makes a covenant with all. In the gospel, Jesus picks up on that theme and says, God brings salvation to all. So I'm wondering, what part of all don't they understand? To me, all means all. Now, I know that they can rationalize around that in order to get their own views, their own biases, their own prejudice, their own fears. And of course, once that happens, then all goes out the window and there is a refusal to be inclusive, to treat people as equals. And we see that all over the place. You see jealousy and envy, exclusion, rich and poor. So that whole thing of dividing people up, it's a very human thing, and particularly within institutions. Who's in and who's out. So when we come to this today, I want to say that we have to take a look at it. It reminds me of a story. A number of years ago, I used to visit a Catholic high school, and one of the teachers there, on every Wednesday over lunch hour, he opened his classroom to what he called a gay straight alliance. So there's a bunch of teenagers. The group I was in was grade 12. Group of teenagers. Some were gay, some were straight, and some were lesbian. So it was the whole spectrum. And they really opened things up and then talked openly about this whole subject. And their refrain was, it's a human thing. It is a human thing. And I read that scientists are telling us there's at least 1,500 species on planet Earth that have homosexuality. It's a normal thing. Normal. And if it's normal for 1,500 species, then it must be normal for human and humanity. Now, it's true that they have been designated as objectively disordered, intrinsically disordered, but that's a judgment. And I think it's a terrible judgment to put on young people. It's a terrible judgment to wear, and they have to carry that burden. And it's not necessary. It's absolutely not necessary. And if we really knew the facts, maybe our church leaders would drop those judgments, if you will, and see our brothers and sisters, their sexual orientation is acceptable. It is what it is. And there's no need for this kind of judgment. So with that in mind, we move on here today. And like I say, I think I started out talking about the classroom. And anyway, I was there one day and the topic came up about the marriage of same-sex marriages. And young people talked about their ideas about it, back and forth, back and forth. Now, there was another cleric there, and they asked him, how about same-sex marriages? Well, of course, he quoted the old theology that the purpose of sex was to beget children. That was the main purpose. The whole idea of sexuality and intimacy as building up stronger relationships, a beautiful way of saying, I love you, I give myself to you, I am willing to make my journey through life with you as my partner. A lot of that really genuine love stuff gets lost if the only reason for marriage is to give birth to children. And of course, that leads you then into artificial birth control, which is another supposedly no-no, even though Catholics have quit believing in that or practicing it anyway 50 years ago. So that's another part that we have to look at. Now, like I say, they asked the question, and the other cleric there says, no, can't bless same-sex marriages for the simple reason that it has to be married where they can have kids. So I, a bit of a devil's advocate, there was a teacher sitting next to me. And I said, I was the side of the mother, said, hey, teach, put the question out if I would. So she didn't tell him that I set her up. So she turned to me and said, loud and clear, Father Leo, would you marry a same-sex couple? So I let a pause and I said, well, if a couple comes to me and they love each other, they understand what it is to make a commitment for life, and if they can get a marriage license, yes, I will officiate at their wedding. Now, it's interesting, we're splitting hairs here, so listen carefully. The document that came out from the Vatican said, we won't bless them. Well, I don't bless them, I officiate. Now, officiating means that I am a witness for the government and for the church. I have been licensed to function as an official, a marriage official. I've been authorized by the government of Ontario, and the church. I've been authorized and I have the permit to do both authorizations. I don't really bless marriages. I officiate, which means I gather them together at a certain time and day. We do the vows and wish them to be happy ever after. And so you can really see that I'm wondering if perchance they use those words bless on purpose. I'm wondering. Because that's not what I do as a cleric. As a priest, I don't bless same-sex. I don't really bless two heterosexuals, a man and a woman. I officiate at their wedding. I'm making it legal, if you will. I'm making it legal. And so I think that's really, really important distinction. And I am wondering if they use those words like inform, assent, approval. I'm wondering if they're about blessing marriages. If they did that on purpose and left it wide open about officiating, just wondering, maybe not. But knowing the Vatican, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And so I think it's safe to say that a big percentage of Catholics certainly don't see anything wrong with same-sex marriages. They know that God is love. St. John, God is love. And those who abide in love abide in God, and God in them. So it's really hard for me to see that God would bless two people. I don't think God would see them as blessing sinners. I don't. God is love. And if two people love each other, is loving a sin? Can it be a sin? I can't see it personally. But the vast majority of Catholics, I think, are quite willing to have it that a priest officiate at a same-sex marriage. I'm quite sure. And I don't think maybe the people of the Vatican, because they're mostly old men, I don't think they realize what a terrible burden they're laying on the backs of gay and lesbian and trans. I don't think they give it any thought. And I think the other question is it just a projection of their own fears? Or is it really the will of God? The will of God. And that's where I come up against it, is what is God's will? And I have no reason to believe that the old men in the Vatican know God's will any better than the Catholics of the world. The men and women who are out there in the world have sons and daughters who are gay and lesbian, have gay and lesbian friends, and work with lesbians and gays every day, are friends with gay and lesbians. I wonder, do they see them as living in sin? I would doubt it, but it's not for me to say. But the one thing I can and will say very clearly, as far as I'm concerned, Jesus in the gospel never made any reference. And not only that, he was accused of eating a meal with sinners. With sinners. Jesus did not just turn away sinners, whatever they were. I have no idea what they were, but Jesus never turned them away. He said, come and have a meal with us. Come on in. You're one of us. Sinners, lepers, marginalized, poor, sick. Come on in. Let's have a meal together. Now, a meal has always been a strong and powerful metaphor for inclusion. For inclusion. If people are invited to a meal, it means they are included as equals. And that's what I'm saying here. I think that we have to find some way of convincing leaderships, their hierarchy, that Jesus invited everybody to the table. No one was excluded. Exclusion is not in keeping with a Christian belief system. Simply isn't. And so I guess my thoughts on a day like this would be, look at gays and lesbians, trans people, they are my brothers and sisters. They didn't choose to be their sexual orientation. They were born with it. And in the creation story, when God had created everything, he said, it's good, it's very good. So, you better be careful about judging other people as being sinners, because God said they're very good. So I think there's a lot of food. We got to think about that. Anyway, as far as I'm concerned, gay and lesbian people are my brothers and sisters. They're equal to me. I will not discriminate. As far as I'm concerned, like I said, with that Gay Straight Alliance classroom, yes. If two came to me and they tell me they love each other and they're prepared to make a permanent commitment and they're looking forward to a life together, and if they get a marriage license, yes, I would definitely officiate at a wedding where I would be the official witness on behalf of the government and on behalf of the church. Amen.